Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. We've talked a lot about some of the best baits to use during the cold water period, and one of the baits that I consistently get a lot of questions about is one of my favorite baits to throw, and that is a blade bait. And I get a lot of questions from individuals out there that want to know specifically what are some of my favorite blade baits. What are some of the areas that I really like to throw them? So I'm going to dive into the four main blade baits that I throw on a very regular basis during the cold water period, give you a reason as to why and when I like to throw them, and hopefully it'll help you catch more fish. Now, before I get into that, I do want to remind you that I do have a members only channel. So if you're looking to get additional content from me, you might want to check that out. We have additional monthly videos, a monthly live stream, a lot of extra content for those that are members to the channel, and it's a great way to support the YouTube channel. And I do give a lot of advice on that regarding blade baits too. So let's talk a little bit about blade baits. One of the reasons a blade bait is such a good bait during the cold water period is it does a great job at mimicking dying bait fish. As the water drops, you tend to put a lot of additional stress on all fish, not just bait fish, game fish as well. And the ones that are not in good health tend to die off during that drop in water temperature. And when that happens, you get a lot of fish that tend to sink down to the bottom and become very, very easy meals for bass. And in my opinion, that's one of the keys to a blade bait is it does a very good job at mimicking a dying bait fish. You know, if you've got shad or alewife or cisco, it doesn't really matter, but whatever the forage species is, generally speaking, as one dies, they tend to sink to the bottom of the lake. And when they sink to the bottom of the lake, a lot of times they'll lay there for a little bit and then they'll kick up and then they'll fall back down to the bottom, kick up, and that happens until that fish actually ends up dying. When it dies and lays on the bottom, if it's not eaten, as the body decomposes, gases develop in the bottom, and that fish will float to the surface. And that's when you see a lot of fish floating on the surface or washed up on the beaches. They've been dead for quite some time and actually had a bunch of gas in them that floated them to the surface. And that's when you see them. And a lot of times, you know, that's when we think, oh man, there's been a massive fish kill. Well, those are the fish that we've seen. Think of how many additional fish are laying on the bottom of the lake as well. But ultimately, that's what a blade bait is mimicking, in my opinion. So when you've got that blade bait, generally speaking, you let it go to the bottom, you pull the rod tip up until you feel it vibrate in the rod tip, and then you let it fall back to the bottom. So that bait is going basically yo-yoing on the bottom, maybe 2 feet off the bottom. So it's really similar to that dying bait fish. Now for me, I generally like to fish these on steeper breaking uh, contour lines. So whether that's a steeper drop off of a big flat or deep water off of a point where that point meets really deep water, could be a deep water hump. Those are the types of places where I really like to fish them. Some of your 45-degree or steeper channel swing banks can be excellent places. But generally speaking, they're just really good baits to maintain that bottom contact as you're fishing deep water. That's one of the keys to it. And they're just really good at generating bites from all game fish. If you happen to live up here in the North Country, you never know if you're going to catch a smallmouth, a walleye, a perch, a muskie. Really, everything eats them. So it's kind of a very versatile bait. Now, for me, my favorite is this guy. This is the Silver Buddy. This is just kind of my old standard, the half-ounce size. Generally speaking, the half-ounce is my favorite size across the board for blade baits. I will go up to a 3/4 ounce or a 5/8 ounce if I'm fishing really deep water or I've got a lot of wind. And I'll drop down a little bit as well to a 1/4 ounce size if I'm fishing shallower water and I've got really still conditions. But a half-ounce, I would say I throw 75% of the time. But the Silver Buddy is one of my absolute go-tos. That's kind of one of the original blade baits, I guess I would say. Now, on top of that, another one that I really like is the Depths Circuit Vibe. So the Circuit Vibe is a little bit more compact. So these are both half-ounce. You can see it's a little bit smaller, not a whole lot, but it's got a little bit more of a different fall. So the weight on a Silver Buddy is more head forward. There's a lot more weight on the Circuit Vibe, so it tends to fall a little bit more horizontal, which can be good at times. I do tend to like that better if I'm fishing more of a deep water flat. So maybe I've got a big deep hump that I'm fishing. I do like the fact that it'll ride a little bit more horizontal versus nose down. But if I'm fishing a steep drop, that's when I prefer to go with something like the Silver Buddy that's more head weighted. I also feel like the Circuit Vibe has a tighter wobble than the Silver Buddy itself. I do want to note too, a lot of times blade baits will have multiple holes, as you see there. You can control the wobble, the amount of vibration from it, by moving your snap from hole to hole. Generally, as you move further back, you tighten that wobble up. If you're in the front hole, what that does is it allows the tail really to swing further and it creates more vibration. It's something definitely worth playing with at times. Most of the ones I throw do not have that. They've got one set hole, which is where the manufacturer thinks you get the best overall performance. But some of them do have that. And regardless, you can see this is the one I fish with it in the front. I still feel like the vibration on it is significantly less than, say, a Silver Buddy or some of your other blade baits. Now, if you're looking for a really wide wobbler, that's where I like this guy. This is the Steel Shad. This guy's been around for quite some time too. I think it was developed, I think on Kentucky Lake. Now this is one that kind of goes the opposite way. You get a much wider wobble. You can see overall length is a lot longer on this. Both of these are 1/2 ounce sizes, but you get a really hard thumping bait. It's also a little bit wider, and I feel like you get a little slower fall. So because it's the same weight, bigger size, it falls a little bit slower. It feels more, I don't know how to describe it. It just feels almost more like a lipless crankbait in a way. It just thumps really hard, a big wider flash on it. Really good bait at generating bites again, but it's, for me, it's one that I like to go to if I've got a little dirtier water. And a lot of times I'll use this more when I'm fishing shallower water versus really deep stuff in 35 plus feet of water. And then the last one that I really like is the Vibrato. So the Berkley Vibrato. This is one that, it's kind of interesting to me because it thumps really hard, but it feels more finessey to me when I fish it. And I don't know if that's because the weight is spread across the bait, and you can fish it really good, almost vertical. You can fish it vertical, and that's one thing that I do really like about it. I know a lot of guys like to fish these even through the ice, but it's kind of a unique in that it doesn't have the big metal blade that a lot of the other ones has. This just really has lead that's proportionately gone around it, and then the belly on it's a little bit wider, which creates that vibration. But you don't really get the big wide tail kick that you get with other blade baits. You almost get a whole bait that just, vibrates back and forth all as one. It doesn't really kick like this. It goes side to side. So you get a whole different performance out of it, and it feels much more finessey to me. And there are certain days where the fish want a tighter wobble, some fish want a wider wobble. It just has to do with a little bit of feeling out on the angler's part. But overall, if you're talking about fishing in water temps that are under 50 degrees, your blade baits are going to be one of your absolute go-tos if you're talking about fishing some of your deeper water areas. Just a great bait, catches them all the way up until ice up, or even under the ice if you can fish them, like I was saying with the Vibrato. Anyways, guys, I hope this answers some of the questions. I've got a lot of questions and comments regarding blade baits in the last couple of weeks, so I thought that this could be beneficial to you. I'll put links for all these baits in the video description if you want to check them out yourself. Otherwise, get out on the water. You can catch them with blade baits this time of year. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. We'll have a new one coming out tomorrow.